Food and Beverage Magazine Live, bringing food and beverage to life. With your hosts, James Beard Award winner Jennifer English and Food and Beverage Magazine publisher Michael Politz. Featuring leaders in the hospitality, branded food and beverage, and CPG industries, many of whom are Jennifer and Michael's friends in the business. For an informal and informative conversation where friends in the business share the latest intel, ideas, and best practices. Live, juicy inside scoop from the tastemakers, newsmakers, bread bakers, drink shakers, spoon lickers, clam diggers, farms, foodies, and friends of the food and beverage magazine world. Here are your hosts, Jennifer English and Michael Politz.
Well, hello, and welcome to Tea Time here at Food and Beverage Magazine. I'm going to say tea with a capital T, and that stands for Tucson. So the good thing about being in Tucson, Arizona is that right now the weather's gorgeous. It's cool enough to wear my turtleneck. It's warm enough to sit outside without a blanket, and the sun is shining, and it's tea time, literally tea time. And I'm thrilled to have you here joining me. We're going to play a little game today, and I'm going to ask you, when you're having your afternoon tea, would you rather have a tortilla or a scone? What about the people around the world? What about the traditions around the world? What about when it's cool? What do you want to sip? Do you want something savory? Well, if you want savory, we're going to be celebrating some of the greatest soups in North America. And I think, and I'm going to put my reputation on this one. This, my dear friends, is a gorgeous caldo de queso. A delicious, I'm going to see if I can give you a shot of this. But look at this beautiful soup with the oregano and the cheese and the creaminess and the savory, succulent flavors that really make your mouth go with satisfaction. Some of the astringency, some of the savoriness, some of the things that your mouth does when you sip a tea. I've got to have just a taste before I get going. This is one of the best soups in North America. I'll put it up against anything, anytime, anywhere. I'm here at the classic, the original. This is El Charro downtown. This is a restaurant that's been operated by the same family for close to 100 years. In fact, we're in year 99. And I'm going to tell you, this is as good as anything you're going to find anywhere. A flavor that will linger in your spirit, in your soul, your sense memory, your mind. It's going to be amazing. I'm telling you, this is special. We're having it as part of our tea party here today. And while I won't have a little sandwich daintily delivered with pinky extended as one of my afternoon tea succulents, what I'll tell you is that afternoon tea all over the world sustains us. And I'm delighted to have one of the world's leading experts in the modern expression of tea in the hospitality industry. Her name is Lisa Gennawey, and her company is one of the most respected. It offers services to become tea experts at great hotels and restaurants around the country. We're going to welcome her in now. Welcome to my tea party, Lisa.
Thank you. Oh my goodness, that was so wonderful. It's
and
so
of
nice
course,
to
you're
be
in my
with you.
native Boston, so this is a proper Boston tea party as well.
Yes, isn't it? And it's snowing outside, so it's just the perfect day.
Oh, is it snowing really? I love that for you.
Yeah, it's
You
just
look
perfect.
so gorgeous. I have to
Oh,
say,
thank you. You're so
there's
sweet.
something about bringing your best self to tea.
There's
There's something
really.
about, Winston Churchill said of champagne, in success you deserve it, and in defeat you need it. But very much could be said the same thing about tea. Can you talk
That
a little
is
bit
true.
about your love affair with tea?
I've had a love affair with tea, and I loved even just those words because that's exactly what it is. It carries me through. It makes me happy. It warms my heart. It's been in the best of times and the worst of times. It's always been prominent on our tables, which is one of the beautiful things about tea in our lives. Really, it touches us in all the moments that we need it to. I started as a tea drinker, and I've never been a coffee drinker. And my mom used to have a little cafe, and she has lupus, so she gave me the keys one day, and I took over, and I've been playing with tea ever since. And her and I went back to California at one point and opened a little tea parlor in the mall in Temecula, California. And so we had her New England antiques and a full service tea parlor, just like you were speaking about with the sandwiches. And we had a Hot Topic next to us, Jennifer. And so we would get all of the trendy kids and then all of the grandmothers and their grandchildren.
I
It
love
was
that.
such a beautiful, yeah, something very special. And I came back and I thought one day out of necessity what I wanted to do that was kind of my own. And it was my love of tea that I thought I'm just going to create something that I would want to drink because I was opening up these packages and smelling something beautiful, but there was no ingredients in it. And so it was such a turnoff that I didn't even brew the cup that day. I'll never forget it was a peaches and cream that I was going to make a cocktail with. And I thought
That doesn't belong in a teacup.
no, and so where is everything that I need to be fruitful in this cup and embody what's real? And so then I started blending my own. And you'll appreciate this because it's the hotelier Dick Friedman of the Charles Hotel and the Four Seasons, who I met him at Scampo. I was there at the bar and I said to Mr. Friedman, I said, with Lydia Shire, you know Lydia. And so I said, Mr. Friedman, can you introduce me to a chef? And he introduced me to Peter Davis at the Charles Hotel in Cambridge. And he taught me how to incorporate ingredients. And he was the first one to bring me into his restaurant and then into his hotel. And I thought, well, this is what I want to be doing. The hotel sector where I can touch guests on every level. A room, a cafe, a spa, in their cocktail at dinner. And from that is the fruition of our company.
Talk a little bit about hotels and afternoon tea. They seem to go hand in hand. And in most cities around the country and in most countries around the world, oftentimes the only and sometimes certainly the best teas and afternoon tea scents are prepared in a hotel setting. But don't be fooled, not all hotel teas are the same. Will you talk a little bit about the sort of tradition of afternoon tea in a great hotel?
Sure. So I think that it's the epitome of creating a guest experience, right? So we go into creating guest experiences through our blends so that you're reminiscing, so that you're feeling comfort, so that you're feeling energy, so that it helps you sleep. We create that in our blends. And then hotels are based on experiences. So what they traditionally have always done is offered an afternoon or a high tea. And what that does is bring everybody together and offer a 3-course sandwiches, scones, desserts, or in a high tea, a little bit more savory. But what it's doing is really bringing and embodying the tradition of something very classic and elegant, which is a hotel setting essentially, right? Essential. And bringing that to the guest in a beautiful, beautiful way. Some of the most stunning that I've seen here in Boston, we do the one blessing at the Four Seasons and a very traditional tea, but then on the weekends they're opening it up to trendy teas. So they'll take the champagne and berries and put it into a cocktail. They did a Fruit Loops tea with us. I have a Fruity Pebbles actually tea with us because they're getting some children that were coming in. For Valentine's Day, we're doing 2 rose blends. So they're bringing a little tradition and a little trend. And then a place like the Virgin Hotel with Richard Branson, which is Nashville, Dallas, Vegas is opening soon.
Soon, very soon. We're keeping our fingers crossed for the Dallas property.
Oh, we do. They just pushed Vegas back a little bit, but it's coming. And so they're taking it and doing an upside down adult tea every weekend, where we're taking our teas and infusing them into cocktails and then a little more eccentric food pairings. But it's really something beautiful to be said about men and women joining together and enjoying that 2 hours of connecting with people. And I think it's going to thrive once we are let back out into the world.
How is a tea different than a happy hour? It's right around the same time of day.
It is, and I think that's where the hotels are bringing the synergy together by doing tea cocktails. I think that the idea is to create an ambiance where guests are mingling, but still in a elevated, ritualistic experience and bringing something unique. So I think that that's all coming full circle now. And
what do you think an afternoon tea should be? What are some of the elements that are the must-have elements, regardless of what city you're in, and no matter what hemisphere you're in, no matter what time zone you're in. What should a proper tea have?
That's a beautiful question. I think that it starts just as a wine list with the tea menu, and it should have traditional and trendy. Where I think a lot of people are missing, and this is where we're evolving, is carrying teas like you and I spoke about, that are appreciated by men and appreciated by women. And what I mean by that is some serious teas, some smoked teas, some multi teas, and then you can have the foofy teas. Oftentimes I go to a hotel and experience an afternoon tea, and I look around and I feel like it's not inclusive of either the younger generations or it's too formal of a setting. And so I think that the next steps are building a beautiful, just like you would a wine list, a beautiful tea menu that encompasses everything from serious to trendy. Cocktails are now a part of that, so they're a must on menus, as are mocktails. Mocktails are making a big comeback. And so I think it's a page of tea, a page of cocktails, a page of mocktails, and then pairing us and your chef together. So as a tea master, I work directly with the chefs, make sure that there's a synergy in the food and what we're pairing the teas with. Also, training.
I'm going to go plug in so we don't have any disruptions. I'm getting a little bit of a signal loss. Would you do for me the favor? And I should say that here at El Charo, one of the family traditions is that the ladies would come and play cards in the afternoon, and they would be sipping their spirits out of teacups. No one would suspect that your abuelita or your tia might be actually having a margarita in her teacup. And that, of course, is one of the many traditions where there have been references to ladies and their commingling of tea traditions and their experience with great whiskeys and spirits, like, whiskey in a teacup, as they say. So would you do us the favor? Would you, and Jonathan, I'm going to have my producer zoom in on her while we go plug in. And would you make us some tea and teach us a little bit? We talked about making pu-erh because you and I share a palate, it seems, that we both really like in the world of Camellia sinensis, which is what all teas are in that same family, that the pu-erh teas are, to my mind, some of the most delicious. And these days, they're also some of the most complex, rare, and expensive. Teas in Macau and other places or in Asia, pu-erhs can cost upwards of 5 and even 6 figures. So talk a little bit about those while I go plug in.
Of course, sure. So pu-erh, I brought you some to see. Pu-erh is actually the only.
That looks gorgeous.
Isn't that beautiful?
That's gorgeous.
This is the only tea that China calls their black tea, is pu-erh. Ours is from a 4th generation farming family in China. It is directly picked and sent to us. We pick it up from Custom Production Facility, which my brother runs. It's amazing. Pu-erh is one of the most elegant teas, and I think it's really important that we're having this discussion because it's often not something most people are familiar with. It's elegant, and I say that because if you think of it in terms of a wine, the tannins are almost non-existent.
Right.
In comparison to an Indian wine, where the tannins are so vibrant that you often cut it with milk and sugar. This is almost no tannins, good for 5 to 7 infusions with the same booze. Brews up a dark brown. It's the perfect coffee replacement for people that are trying to switch from coffee to tea. The energy level from a cup of pu-erh is pretty significant in terms of tea. It has about 60 to 70 milligrams of caffeine per cup. So it's high in caffeine. But what's beautiful about it is it's so stunning and easy to drink. Once I brew it, I actually brew mine as a light concentrate so that it's strong, and then I just pour a little into my cup throughout the day, and I'm adding hot water to it. I never sweeten it or add milk because there's nothing to cut. There's no bitterness or astringency. It makes a beautiful iced tea. In terms of aroma, it's got a musty, I live out in Boston, so I can say basement, kind of vibe to it. It's got that musty, like very earthy smell to it. So you'll notice a pu-erh anytime you are around it. What it does is has the benefits health-wise of anti-anxiety, calming, cholesterol, heart health, digestion problems. It's beautiful for regulating blood if you have, blood sugar, um, stuff that you need to maintain. It's really one of the most stunning cups. To give you an idea of how it's aged, like Jennifer was speaking about, this is aged like a wine and then often sold at auction for up to millions of dollars. So the longer that it ages, the more expensive it is. And they're often made into pu-erh cakes. So it looks exactly like it sounds, a very dense pu-erh cake, and you just chip off a little and put it into your cup just as you would traditional tea leaves. So let's brew a cup. I have some hot water here, and what I'm going to do actually is use one of your very traditional pour over coffees, but I'm going to put the leaves right in because I really want you to be able to see the color. So pu-erh again is not going to get tannic or bitter, so I steep it endlessly. When you're getting into aged pu-erhs, you want to do a quick rinse on the leaves first. But mine is a traditional grade. I do 1 tablespoon per cup. All of our cups are a little bit larger nowadays, so it's not the traditional 6-ounce anymore. So when I speak about a cup, I'm usually speaking about an 8-ounce. So 1 tablespoon per cup, and I put the leaves right in the bottom. It's an endless steep, which also makes it beautiful on a food menu because there's nothing that the guest can do. There's no rushing back for the server to remove the tea leaves. Our tea bags, our little silk sachets don't even come with strings because of the elegance of the leaves. You don't even have to pull it out. Just let it steep and steep. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and infuse this. And I really want you to see the vibrancy of the colors the longer that it sits. So you can see already that it's very dark. Traditionally on a black tea, you're taught 3 to 5 minutes. This one is my favorite at about 7 minutes. And the reason is because it's going to get dark and full-bodied. It's just going to be so stunning. And you can smell the mustiness and the earthiness of it. Again, once you smell a pu-erh, you'll know it from a mile away from then on. It's really beautiful.
You know, one of the things that I want to say about pu-erh tea, that was just such a great master class in one of my favorite of all time teas. Now, do I love pu-erh because it's possible to sell for $1 million? No, I just love the style of pu-erh tea. And the key is to find the style of pu-erh within the family of pu-erh that really speaks to you. And when Robin Leach used to do the show Lifestyles of the Rich and Famous, he could have easily said champagne wishes, caviar dreams, and pu-erh tea to finish the day, because they're really that exquisite. And the finest of the fine pu-erh teas are really, in many respects, indescribable. One of the things I love about the pu-erh that I like a little golden melon pu-erh tea.
Oh my
And
goodness.
when I break off a little piece of it and I brew it in the morning, and then I just keep adding hot water throughout the day, the second infusion, the third infusion, the fourth infusion, the sixth infusion, by the time you just keep adding hot water to it all day long, and it transforms before your very eyes as though to carry you through your day. I mean, it's really like a magic carpet ride of tea in that sense, not to completely mix my metaphors.
Yeah, it's so true. It's really a beautiful evolution over the course of a day. And again, just like a wine, it's the different ages that you learn to appreciate and aspire to try. So even on hotel menus, Jennifer, I think that one of the things that bars can do, and we did this with the Taj in Boston, is a rare tea menu where you're offering aged pu-erhs just by the cup. It's really a beautiful experience for cigar smokers and scotch drinkers. And
if you're the kind of person who loves those layers of descriptive nuance, the kind of
Mhm.
flavors and aromas that articulate to you, this is what I am and this is how I'm different, meaning the tea, the cigar, the whiskey, the wine. We've
Right.
become accustomed to appreciating the difference of each of those things in each of those kinds of products and experiences and tastings. This isn't just dunking a great, red rose tea bag and just making sure you don't leave it in too long before it gets too bitter. With something like these pu-erh leaves, it's almost impossible to let it steep too long. It's almost impossible to let
All
it go
right.
too long. That's not
Right.
true of all fine teas, but it's certainly when you put it in a carafe like that, you can think, well, that looks delicious. It almost looks like an after dinner coffee. How would I serve that
Hmm.
in a big mug, or would I serve it in a tiny little tea service cup that looks more like a half of a macaron size round? What is the proper way to serve a pu-erh for people?
So when I enjoy it, I have it in a traditional mug, porcelain. But what I love at a restaurant is a glass. Uh, you know, is a little glass, Jennifer, because I think that guests should see the tea and the if there's ingredients in it.
Yeah.
So, for example, if you did an Earl Grey, you'd want to see an orange pinwheel or an orange twist.
Because you'd want to
But this,
accentuate that bergamot flavor that most people
yes,
identify as a kind of orange-ish flavor.
yes, exactly. And then also this pu-erh can be put into a Manhattan, a black pu-erh
Whoa, whoa, whoa,
Manhattan.
whoa, whoa. I am going to say time out on that one, please. You know that I wrote a book about Manhattan cocktails.
No, did you?
And coming
I
from
need, I
Boston,
think I need to
I'll tell you the
okay.
quick story.
Yes.
I had my first Manhattan cocktail when I was 25, even though the drinking age was much, much younger. And my mother took me to the Lenox Hotel in downtown Boston,
Oh my
right
goodness.
around Christmas
Love
time,
it.
right around Thanksgiving time. And I sat down at the piano bar at the Lenox where they played Christmas carols in a sing-along fashion. And she proceeded to order us Manhattans. I suspect, and I think I remember it was actually a Crown Royal Manhattan. And
Beautiful.
I asked her what she was doing when she ordered for me, because she knew that's not what I would normally order or sip. I wasn't much of a drinker, but this was not about the sip. This was about the ritual. This was my liquid bat mitzvah in a way. I mean, it was just one of those life milestone moments in my mom's eyes. And so when I asked her why she was ordering me this drink, she said, well, now you're old enough to appreciate it. And I said, but I turned drinking age several years ago. And she said, but you really couldn't appreciate it until this age, 25. I
The truth.
said, but why did you wait so long to take me here? And she said, well, you can't possibly have it. Because I said, I turned 25 a few months ago. And she said, well, you couldn't possibly enjoy it until after Thanksgiving. And I said, okay. And she was absolutely right. I mean, you can really enjoy them all year long, but they're really much more delicious
Yes.
right after Thanksgiving, and much more delicious when you're old enough to appreciate it. And so that's what rooted in me and what led me to craft the Manhattan cocktail book. But that's the whole story. So I
I
am
love
dying
that
to see
story.
how you weave the Manhattan story and the pu-erh story
Yeah.
together in a glass. I'm going to guess a glass,
So
not a cup, but maybe I'm wrong.
stirred, and I would do just sweet vermouth.
Do you
I've
make
tried
them
it with,
there? Are you going to make one for us now?
no, I don't have sweet vermouth,
That's okay.
but I know,
Well,
we
I'm gonna
started
next.
making them.
This just gives us an excuse to get together another time, and we're gonna run
Yeah.
along. And I
Yeah.
promised we'd only be 30 minutes, and here we are. We're like right up against the time. One of the other teas that I learned about in great hotels was going to the Taj, which was formerly the Ritz-Carlton Hotel.
Yes.
And when it was the Ritz-Carlton Hotel, my great-grandmother was the night room service manager there. And I went as a little girl and learned what fancy was in the French and Adams room. and in the Bristol cut chandelier dining room with blues and crystals and golds. And I had my first Lapsang Souchong tea in an afternoon tea setting when I was a young person,
Yes.
and it blew my mind. Oh, that looks so, I'm so jealous. That's so good.
So for those of you that aren't familiar with lapsang, it is a smoked tea, and the farmers lay it over coals for 3 days. And it's my second most favorite in Manhattan because of the smokiness. We also just paired it with a grapefruit. We took a very delicate white grapefruit tea and added the smoked lapsang to it for a smoked grapefruit.
Have you played with peppercorns and grapefruit?
No.
Black
We need to do
peppercorns
it.
and grapefruit peel go so harmoniously together.
Oh my goodness, beautiful. It sounds like it. I'll play around. And then I'll send you some to try.
The other thing about Lapsang Souchong, it would go brilliantly well with a smoky whiskey like the Whiskey Del Bach or even some of the peaty Scotch whiskeys. And when you think of Manhattans, you might not think of Scotch whiskey in that form, but it could be very adaptive if you were going in that smoky direction. It might technically deserve a different name, but we'll argue about that in the semantics of it a little bit later. Talk about the families that are making Lapsang Souchong tea are actually some of the same families that have been making it for 400 years. It's an ancient tradition. What an unusual way to process tea, but that gets into processing tea and picking tea. And I'm going to give you a couple minutes to describe what makes the difference between a supermarket tea and a fine tea like you serve.
Oh, I think that that's a wonderful question. So for our company, I only created things that I would want to drink myself. That's why we started incorporating real ingredients. So when I became a tea master and then later a blending master, I met a farming family in China, and they are fourth generation. It's a stunning story because they almost had to close because they couldn't understand how to create a relationship between the United States to sustain them. And then the grandkids became old enough and built that relationship, and now they're a thriving company. So when farmers pick the tea leaves, it's the most full that you can get with these. If I can show you some of these tuber leaves, these are full leaves. So when the farmer picks it, this is exactly the size of the leaf.
If you opened up a standard supermarket tea bag, they look nothing on the inside like what you
No, what you're going to get is these are packaged for us. And then what you're going to get is just a little dust at the bottom is what's packaged into your supermarket tea bags. The difference I think that you'll find that will make the most difference to everybody's life is this is a biodegradable silk. What you're getting in the supermarket is often a paper, sometimes with a staple on it, which is ironic, but either way, the paper masks the flavor about 30%. So you're not even able to enjoy the true essence and depth of the tea leaves. I think that those are two of the biggest differentials.
And when you talk about tea, we talk about Camellia sinensis, but there are different warm liquids. And of course, we're going to go back and we're going to taste some incredible soup together because it's soup weather all over the country right now.
Yeah,
What's
that
the
one
difference
looks so
between something like a broth and a tea and a tisane? What would you distinguish as one from the other? What's the difference really between a tisane that you would say even looks like a tea in a teacup?
There's tea leaves, and then there's herbs and spices, and there's even the chamomile. The chamomile is an herb, it's a flower, so it's not an actual tea. So when we create an herbal blend or a tisane, it's fruits and spices, maybe the orange from Florida, dried cherries, blackberries. It's all of those ingredients that are created. So the three different differentials: a tea leaf, herbs and spices, and a flower. It's not an actual tea even. That's a good question.
And sometimes a broth can be as tasty as a tea, and sometimes a tea can be as soothing and nutritious and healthful as chicken soup. It's amazing to me, all these wonderful liquid warm beverages. And so we're going to walk through this gorgeous courtyard right now, and we're going to go back to our soup, and we're going to wrap up our session together with Lisa Gennawey from the Gennawey Tea Company. Hey, how are you?
I can't wait to come to this
And
place
they
with
have
you.
one of the most incredible places in southern Arizona. Of course, I like to think that this is where this cuisine was born. And I'm going to dip in one more time and I'm going to try and show you. I know you did such a good job, but this is the beautiful caldo de queso, redolent with herbs.
Oh, it's so good.
It has cheese in it. And then I'm going to give you the unveiling. This is like one of those unboxings that they're doing on YouTube and TikTok. This is my unboxing, okay? The word for meatball in every culture brings a smile to your face for the people who understand what the word is. And if you don't understand one glimpse of the spherical food, and you will be transported to a happy place. Well, in Spanish, in Mexican cuisine, it is the albóndigas. And so I'm going to show you what I consider the world's most perfect albóndigas right here. And I'm going to fish out one of these gorgeous meatballs. Look at all of this vegetable. Look at all of this broth. To me, the healthful. I mean, one's grandmother couldn't make a more gorgeous soup for you. And those meatballs. Oh, it's so good. But to me, it's always about the broth. It's both light and rich. It's soulful. It's nourishing. And when there's just a dusting of snow on the top of the Catalina Mountains on the outskirts of Tucson, and you think, now is when I really want some soup, this is the place I'll go. I'll go to El Charro. I'll go to the Barrio Charro. I'll go to the El Charro up in Ventana. They've got so many locations, and at all of them, the Charro Steak and the Charro del Rey, they make this soup in the 99-year tradition of the Flores family. It's sensational because it's soulful. It's soothing. And it does everything you want a great bowl of soup to do. It may, if I didn't feel well, I want you to bring me some of this. You understand? And if I needed my heart fixed, please make me a cup of lapsang souchong. And if I need my soul fixed, please make me a cup of pu-erhs.
Oh, so nice.
When you don't feel well, which tea do you drink?
When I don't feel well, I take the pu-erhs, I put cinnamon, a little fresh lemon, and that's it. And I just keep filling it up. Yeah. It's really beautiful. I think one of the things that you might find interesting on a pu-erhs, and try this just for something for everybody at home, is making a little foam with cinnamon in it. So make your traditional pu-erhs cup, but just top it with a little cinnamon foam. It brings
now tell me the secret to cinnamon foam. Am I using a milk or am I using a cinnamon water? Because I keep cinnamon water in my fridge all the time.
Oh, do you?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, I love that.
Do you use cinnamon water? Do you want to know my other cinnamon trick? Because I used to be in the spice business. We have so much to talk about. I feel like I've got a new girlfriend. This is so fantastic. Here's my secret tip. When you take a soup like we're having here, and I have it the next day, and I add water to it to increase the volume in its leftover form. And it's really simple. You don't want it to taste watery because you've added water to it. So I take a stick of cinnamon when I put the water in and bring it up to a simmer. And the cinnamon is like background music of flavor. So it blends in with every cuisine to whatever if you had chili, if you had any kind of soup, chicken noodle soup, it doesn't matter. If you had some Thai noodles, if you had a ramen leftover, anything, if you've got it in a pot and you add water to increase the volume for leftover happiness, add a stick of cinnamon and simmer it for 20 minutes.
So I'm going to take, I love cinnamon sticks, and I'm going to take the totally eccentric girly version of this. And about a week ago, I took cinnamon sticks and dipped them in chocolate with a little glitter on top so that they could sit on top of a teacup for the people who just needed a little sweetener in it.
And so it was a molten chocolate, or was it cocoa?
No, it was melted milk chocolate. And then I did a white chocolate version for Valentine's with the red glitter on it.
I've got a new tea sister. Her name is Lisa Gennawey, and it's been a thrill to have you on Food and Beverage Magazine Live.
Thank you always. Such a pleasure.
And I'm going to raise my cup. Is it proper to toast with a teacup?
Yes, as long as it's not water, we can toast.
And so what's the Gennawey Tea House toast?
I don't have one. I just always say for life to slow down a little bit and enjoy each other in the moment.
Well, as we're both got a little Boston in our soul, I'm going to return to Julia Child, who gave me her toast. And when she clinked her glass to mine, when I asked her what her favorite toast to share was, she clinked it, and we heard the sound of the clinking, and she said, Le carillon de l'amitié, to the bells of friendship. So may we hear the bells of friendship when we clink our teacups together.
Cheers, cheers. This was wonderful. Thank you, Jennifer.
And if you want to hide your whiskey, stick it in the teacup. Thank you so much. We're going to wrap up this edition of Food and Beverage Magazine Live. And if you want more information, we'll have all of it from gennawaytea.com. I'm Jennifer English, and we'll see you again tomorrow. And if you have any questions, please visit us on fb101.com.
Whether you are thinking about becoming a restaurateur or you are already in the business, Michael Politz has written a must-read, The Food and Beverage Magazine's Guide to Restaurant Success. Pick up your copy today at Barnes & Noble, Amazon, Books A Million, or wherever fine books are sold.